Welcome to episode 8 of DX Leaders. Today's big topic is 5G. What's beyond the hype? If there's anything, we have fantastic guests today to discuss that. My name is Lars Födisch, former journalist and professional storyteller, and I'm your host together with Andreas Enderlin. As always, this webinar series is brought to you by SwissGem in partnership with Deloitte. And most of us couldn't be connected today if it wouldn't be through some form of telecommunications technology. But what we want to focus today is really about that 5G. What does it mean? We know Apple just launched their latest iPhone series, and they made a big hurrah about 5G finally available, though others had it already in their product. So if you look at some of the numbers, Statista says 5G mobile subscriptions worldwide will grow from about 13 million end of last year to 1.9 billion by 2024. That's a massive number, and especially developed Asia and North America are expected to embrace 5G technology faster than other parts of the world. And we have an operator here, so hopefully we can get a look at his perspective on the next. And last stat I want to share, 94% of operators believe security and reliability concerns will increase with the advent of 5G, will increase. So let's look, will we have a better, safer, faster environment? What are the challenges? And most importantly, what are the use and business cases? Why do we need it? Why a solution if we're not aware of the problem? Let's look at that in a moment. As always, we have sufficient time for questions from the audience. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please use the Q&A function of the Zoom panel, the Q&A and not the chat section. The beauty about it is you can also upvote questions that you think should be asked and don't have to even post yourself. So as you know, the DX Leaders series is in conjunction with the DX Awards, and the specialist, the initiator, the brain behind it is Andreas from Hugo Capital. Andreas, can you give us a quick update on what's happening with the awards? What's next?
Sure, thank you, Lars. Just one minor correction. It's not me, the brand, it's SwissGem. So the award was initiated by SwissGem. And so we started beginning of this year, and I'm going to be very, very short. I just wanted to quickly give you an update where we stand. So Clarissa, one further. So we have closed our applications. So by the end of September, we were finalizing that. And basically, I just wanted to say thank you to all the people that participated, and also to the team, to the different sponsors. I think without them, it would not have been possible. We unfortunately don't have a 5G application. I looked through it, or any startup that is developing a 5G application, but we have some really great companies there. So very happy to have them all. Clarissa, one further. Okay, so as mentioned, end of September, we closed the application, and now it's really going into the pitching night. So a big shout out to all of you that are listening. Please join our public pitching, which will be happening on the 25th and 26th of November. It will be open. You can vote. I think that's very important for you also. So you will have the top 3 kind of companies by subcategory that will pitch, and you can learn a lot. And obviously you can publicly vote these companies. All right, and then we'll have the final pitching night, which will happen in December. So you're also all invited to join there, but we will obviously be present on social media. So stay tuned and with the latest news. And with that, I would like to hand back to Lars.
Thank you, Andreas, and very exciting. And I'm crossing my fingers, or in German, how we say, pressing my thumbs for all the people and companies that have submitted their submissions for the DX Awards. So as always, we kick the topic off with our poll. And today's poll is about what or which do you think are the main drivers for 5G? So what will be the applications that will drive 5G adaptation? So please place your bets. So this is the first opportunity for our dear guests to participate. Everybody who could have been somewhere else but chose to join us for that fantastic topic. What do you think will be the main driver for 5G? Andreas, what's your take?
Well, I was going for the middle, ultra high speed connectivity, because the other ones are, I think, very debatable, and we will certainly discuss them. And I think there's a reason why you put this one in the middle. What about you, Lars?
You know, for me, it's like ultra high speed connectivity is kind of a safe bet, but it's kind of means to an end. What do we actually need it for? Do I need more movies? Can I download them faster than I can watch them? I think actually, like a lot of times, it's devices that drive adaptation. So I think gaming will be a massive driver actually. But okay, let's close the poll and see what the audience thinks, because that's what matters. And then we'll also ask our experts. So what does the audience think? It's high speed connectivity and then smart cities. I'm sure especially Charles is happy to hear that, but I'm absolutely sure he has an opinion on that one. And gaming is last but not least. Let's see about that in a few years. Good. Okay, so that's the introduction on the topic. And to get a real better idea on what 5G actually is, and we don't want to have a technical specs definition today. Charles Reed, one of our expert guests today from Charles Reed Anderson and Associates, will give us just a quick intro on why 5G is different. Charles, please take it away.
Okay, sounds good. By the way, the answer was gaming. That is the big revenue driver going forward. I'm pretty sure that Willis and Daniel would have agreed with me on that one. So the people who voted for it were probably us three. So anyway, you can go to the next slide. All I wanted to do was just take 1 or 2 minutes and explain basically what's really different about 5G. Yes, we hear about it, so it's fast. That's what we call broadband, and like IoT is the buzzword they use for it. There's another thing about coverage, and that's what they call massive IoT, and then latency. And latency is just how quick and how much delay there is in the network. I mean, think about an autonomous vehicle. You want it to be able to get that information fast so you don't crash. Go ahead. But the characteristics, like I said, the broadband one, it's just faster. That's all we really know about it right now. Yes, it can be much faster, but like Lars mentioned, if it takes you a few seconds to download your latest Netflix film, it still takes you 2 hours to watch it. On that coverage side, this is the weird thing about 5G. This is probably one of the biggest opportunities, but it's all about low cost, low energy solutions. So things that you could have done on 2G will also be embedded inside of 5G. But it sends just a little bit of information. So think about asset tracking, or think about how the fact they might want to stick modems and these connections inside of any product that goes in your home. And then the latency thing, it's just about making sure you have very high availability for your critical solutions. Next. You can go again. This will give you the idea of some of the use cases. So yes, the broadband is interested for some things, like for drones, it'll be a great one. For AR, VR, it'll improve the performance. The challenge is AR, VR is actually not bad with 4G. We just really haven't figured out what types of solutions, and we haven't had those devices come down to the right price points. On that massive IoT, like I said, it's not always the most exciting things. It could be smart meters, doing logistics, asset tracking. But that critical, the ones where you need the ultra low latency, that's when you have the connected vehicles, remote healthcare, and smart factories. Also, what you'll see then is these maybe new business models popping up around esports or now M-sports. And finally, on this one, really quick, when's it going to be available? Go ahead to the next one. And there. So basically, when it launches, it is going to be faster, but a lot of these things are going to happen over a period of time. That massive IoT thing comes out, I think they just did the most recent release of the 3G or 5G spec, which means you'll only start seeing that widely adopted in 2022. And when we get to these things about being able to support autonomous vehicles, it's a lot further still in the future because you need a lot more base stations. It's more expensive to put together, and we need the business models to operate on it to support that cost expenditure. But that's a quick overview. Let's get on to the chat. I don't want to waste anyone's time on this.
Thanks, Charles, for providing the overview. And now I have the honor on also introducing our other guests. We have Willis Sim. He's the Chief Corporate Sales and Solutions Officer at M1. Hi, Willis. Welcome to DX Leaders.
Great to be here.
Yeah, and we have Daniel Mausoff. He's the VP and Global Sales Head, Enterprise Services at Nokia. So let's directly start with a few burning topics, and I already see the first questions in the Q&A section coming in. 5G is said to be up to 100 times faster than 4G. So besides that and that speed, what else can we actually get truly excited about, and why do we need that speed? Why is this really relevant? How will it impact my life, my business? Who want to take it off? I'm sure Daniel from the systems kind of view. I'm sure you have a sales pitch why operators should buy it. And Willis, like, you get excited so people will use it. But please enlighten us. What's really like? What's the use case? Simple in a nutshell. Why do we need it? Why does it matter? Daniel, you want to kick it off?
Hear from the supplier. Let's hear from the vendor first, Daniel.
No, okay, all right. Well, I promised I'm not going to do a sales pitch, so I'll stick it to some facts. So first of all, pleasure to be here. Thank you, and look forward to the conversation in the next 50 minutes or so. So I think, why is it there? One of the things is, you mentioned it's 4 times faster, 100 times faster. I think speed is really going to be something which is going to drive 5G adoption from a user. I sometimes feel we don't talk about it enough. We talk about the ecosystem, but as you look at the networks going live in an advanced country right now, we're seeing that people are adopting to 5G even more. So we've seen 7 times more VR experiences coming in on an advanced market in Asia. We've seen 3.5 times people more streaming on 5G. And this is a network where we have 10% or more 5G subscribers out of the entire subscriber pool. So there is going to be high-speed connectivity. And to ask how much more can you consume? Well, I asked that question and I was like, I'm done. I can't consume anything more. Then the pandemic happened, right? And we just completely changed everything in terms of what the user can really look forward to in terms of pulling in what you can from a content standpoint. So I think if you look at where we're going with 5G today, I think some of the key things, and the poll was well on, gaming is going to be some of the key drivers. And not to just directly agree with Charles, but I think it is going to be something that's going to be really, really key as we see the younger generation marking it up for. As an individual, I just want to close off with saying, I think 5G is about, the world is about user-generated content. And that's where the world is going. May it be enterprise, may it be a subscriber, it's user-generated content that matters. There's no more pushing content of what it is. It's about pulling. And it's about people really generating content and uploading it to what you can. And I think 5G is just going to significantly change that. So I think the business models will drive that. But Willis, over to you maybe from there.
So I was very happy when I saw the poll. It was a fantastic poll. For any telco like ourselves and who are transforming, the answer to the poll is actually all of the above. And it has to be all of the above and more than that. So I think I would cover the 5G, what 5G means for consumers and enterprise in 2 broad space. Most of you who are living in Singapore would have already experienced 5G in certain part of Singapore now. I mean, the 5G rollout has started in Singapore, and if you have not tried, just go and sign up a plan with any of the telcos. Of course, I will encourage you to sign with M1. We've got the best network. But once you try it out, you will actually test the network. You will see what Charles and Daniel had mentioned: experience higher speed and better latency in a way that you get to play games with less lag. But what to me, I think 5G brings about, the true innovation of 5G comes about in an unknown fashion. If you remember when we went 3G to 4G, what was the thing that was most memorable for most of us was that it created a new number of industries. The Spotify of the world, the Netflix of the world, for the industry, for the company, it created the AWS, enables a lot of new solutions and applications that all of us are enjoying today. In a 3G world, Facebook was slow. Today, if you're on a 4G world, you love Facebook, you can upload more videos, you can do more things. So for 5G, if you look at the quantum in terms of speed, in terms of the capacity and the data they can process, you will be seeing a magnitude of about 10 to 100 times, depending on what kind of application that you are going to use it. So what for the consumers, beyond the speed that you'll be seeing now, the little bit of latency that you'll be enjoying for your games, you'll be seeing a lot of new solutions that will be appearing. For example, we are already seeing early stages of cloud gaming. So in the past, you need to stay in the house to play games. Today, now you can be gaming anywhere, in a hotel. All right, it's not the best place to be in the COVID situation. You can be anywhere now. In an events, you can be enjoying a lot of different solutions, different games, without being stuck to a particular location anymore. So it brings high-speed mobility. All right, and think of it as fiber to bringing a fiber connection with you anywhere you go. All right, high-speed fiber connection wherever you go. Today, to enjoy that very high speed, you need to be at home at a static location in the office. So with 5G now, that is enabled anywhere. So you bring about a lot of new solutions. And for the consumers, you will see things slowly moving ahead as the regulations takes place. Remote piloting of boats. You heard about autonomous cars. That's already tested in some part of Singapore. You will see that happening as well. So things like this will move along. We need to wait. Technology is already here. We need to wait for the rules, the regulation to catch up with it, so that we know how to actually install some of these solutions safely. All right. Piloting a boat today remotely without a person is already possible. As you know, M1 is part of Keppel. We have tested a lot of industrial solutions. So you see boats being piloted. You see drones being operated now for a lot of solutions without any human beings involved at all. So for the consumer, you will see a lot of new things happening, remote surgery, etc. Now let me touch on the enterprise side. This is where probably the most excitement is being created now. 5G will bring about, as most of you have heard, industrial transformation, meaning that many industries will be transformed. All right. Now, of course, COVID is transforming us faster, but 5G is the enabler. All right. COVID forced you to change. 5G enable you to change. So I think what it does for the businesses is this: it brings together industrial systems that we all are used to with the internet systems. So what we are doing in the factories, in the place of work, in the offices, in your workplace, they'll be combined with the internet system that we are familiar with, the Amazon of the world, the Google of the world. And with this, a lot of the way we work will change tremendously. Some of you are already working from home. I'm sure you will love to work from home with a much higher speed connectivity. And if you can bring your work from home experience to somewhere, anywhere in Singapore, and the high speed experience with a full screen, 6 video, with all the jerkiness, you enjoy that. So that is some of the immediate things you can see straight away with 5G going to the helping the workspace. Now on the enterprise side, you heard of things like edge computing. A lot of computing today are very much centered in the data center. You need to send your data back to actually process data. In the future, your doctors, a lot of the information about you, your doctors, to actually process it at the clinic level. It doesn't have to be going all the way back to the hospital to get the information. All right. AI, a lot of proactive monitoring, proactive suggestions can be given to you on your phone. Your phone is powerful enough today to be like a PC. All right. But all the AI capabilities are still very much in the cloud. In the future, with edge computing, a lot of these capabilities can be pushed to the phones. So all consumers, the companies will also benefit. Thirdly, today we have data centers. So I think a lot of companies are already working from home and working remotely. So with 5G, again, cloud computing, working from anywhere will be the way of future for most of the enterprises. And lastly, the most interesting thing I think is available is automation. Today, we are looking at a lot of industrial automation of processes, a lot of redundant processes and jobs that that's meaningless to be done. All right. So with 5G now, you can now allow a lot of these things to be done automatically by a robot in the cloud or near you in your office. All right. And what is lacking today is actually a fast speed connection with very good latency. So you need to notice that latency is good for gaming in the consumer space, but for the B2B space, it's tremendous because it's the enabler for a lot of solutions that are not possible today on 4G. Thank you.
So, Will, just a quick, thank you very much for the comprehensive point of view. Maybe just to put things in context, the cynical me would say, I don't need more connectivity. I actually, sometimes in my life, I want less. But that's, that's just joke aside. For me, it sounds a lot like a lot of things that we can do, that's possible. So is it something where the technology comes first? So it's more a supply side push, and the demand is we roughly know what we want to do, but the industry, the consumers just have to make use of that opportunity yet. So is it actually a lot of technology is demand driven? We need this. This one sounds a little bit more like it's supply driven. We can do it. That's why we do it.
I think we all heard Steve Jobs have this famous saying, right? The consumer don't know what they want. And I think what's happening is that with 5G, a lot of the solution that we are looking at today, the new things that the consumer will experience, the business will experience, we do not know what we want. I know certain things. I know we are trying certain of these pilots, etc. But the real innovation will come shortly when the network is ready, and when all these entrepreneurs, where all the people are looking at how to improve life, how to do work more effectively, new solution will come out. I think I mentioned earlier in the 3G to 4G transition, you've got a wave of new companies appearing in the world. The Netflix of the world, the Spotify of the world, the Facebook of the world, they all appear because the faster connectivity, the faster speed enables all these internet companies. Similarly for 5G now, I believe we're going to see a huge wave of new companies emerging. It could be in the B2B space, the gaming companies, the AR, VR learning companies. It could also be in the computing space, in the B2B space as well. We are already seeing a lot of interesting vertical solutions that are appearing that we may not be aware of, but we'll be the end beneficiary of it. For example, in the hospital, if they can start to do remote surgery, I think something that is not available today on 4G. You can't be doing surgery on 4G where your doctor is worried, that the connectivity may suddenly turn off, be off. So with 5G, there's what you call guaranteed quality of service. And simply because for 5G, think of it as a highway. 5G, the highway is very big. So there's plenty of space for a lot of new solutions, a lot of new applications to come on board. So that's how I look at it.
If I can add something there, if you don't mind, Lars, from my perspective, and sorry to disagree a little bit, Willis. I think the saying about Steve Jobs that the consumer doesn't know anything is absolutely old and incorrect. I think we have to give the consumer more power to decide what it is. And I think this pandemic has really taught us that. Lars, if you ask me that question, that this is just an information highway, 5G, again, 9 months ago, it's all there, and we've been talking about use cases. If you ask me now, it's a very different case by case, industry-driven opportunity that's showing up. So you're talking about surgery in 5G. Let's just forget the surgery for a second. But let's talk about sanitation that is happening by robots in countries where they have been able to put the sanitation and not risk the frontline workers who had to wear a mask or could get infected by COVID. So there are sanitation robots that are being run on 5G, trying to get the robotics piece going. You should get testing done. I was just getting a test done. I had an individual with a full suit on to come and test. Those are the use cases that are applicable now. And that's just healthcare. You could go to education. We just took a shift, a 5 to 7 year shift in digital transformation over a period of 4 weeks. So the consumer knows what they want. I think we're done with the iPhone, Steve Jobs comments about. In fact, I think we're done with the comments from a few years ago when every presentation I used to go to used to say, the biggest company in the world doesn't have any taxis. We're done with that. I think we have moved further away from where we were a year ago. So we need new things to say. The consumer knows what they want. The connectivity is coming. 5G is there. The use cases are going to be driven by the transformation that we're going through. And it's not about evolution. And I think one thing I would agree with Willis in his initial 4 points that he talked about is there is a massive shift. 5G is not about radio. 5G is about everything around it. So in a recent Bell Labs report, so there's my marketing pitch for Nokia. In a recent Bell Labs report, we had a concept of 5G plus. And all we're saying there, it's not anything but the ecosystem. So there's private wireless in there. There's mobile edge computing in there. There's IoT devices in there. Everything is in there. And that ecosystem is going to grow, not just the radio part or not just the core part. It's not about the network. It's not. In fact, I would say it's about the user. It's about the enterprise user. And ultimately, one more agreement, because I disagree with you on one point, Willis. Another point is your point about governments. I think public-private partnerships are absolutely more important than they've ever been in the world now in connectivity, because the next billion user you're going to connect, it's unfortunately not just the operator. It's everybody in the industry. It is the government, the cities, the operator, the SME. Everybody needs to get together to get to that last end user. The operator won't get there. So, sorry, but that's just the reality of it.
I got a couple points on this one.
Because in this new environment that we are in today, it's an ecosystem that I absolutely agree with you. So I think with the 3G to 4G transition, 2 big app stores appear in the world. You got the Android App Store, you got the Apple App Store. I think with 5G, you will see a 5G App Store appearing somewhere, but who is the one controlling the App Store? That's the question that we are not too sure. And with this App Store, think of 5G as enabling the App Store for consumer and corporates. There'll be a new wave of solution and application that's going to come on board this thing. So that's something that I believe will happen. And as Daniel mentioned earlier, it will be a collaboration of the governments, the telcos, the partners like Nokia, and a solution of everybody, driven by the demands of the consumers, the enterprise. Of course, COVID is a strong, tremendous boost in terms of moving things forward for transformation. And this will accelerate the level of innovation. What I cannot see today is actually, is there a true use case that would drive 5G? Nobody knows. I couldn't define one. And then when 3G was there, the iPhone was there, nobody knows. Actually, iPhone was the biggest use case for the 3G network. And you drive the App Store, it will come one wave after another, and it will be the same evolution again. And there's no revolution here. We don't know. There's no today in the arena, in the world. There's no one solution or one application that's critical that 5G is for. It's probably, as Daniel mentioned, a combination of everything that will come to it, and it's yet to be discovered. We're hoping to see the new Facebook of the world, the new Google of the world that will appear. That will appear when 5G draws them with high-speed connectivity.
So Willis, maybe I can just add quickly one thing, because I was I was a bit surprised by your positive statements about Industry 4.0, industrial and manufacturing use cases. So I think it's a massive hype about manufacturing use cases, because you already have technology that can create that connectivity on a manufacturing shop floor. You have low-powered wireless network, you have Bluetooth, you have wireless, you have LAN. So in most of the manufacturing environments, it's not so much about the bandwidth or the speed or the latency. It's really about connecting these devices and having integrated machines that actually talk to each other. So I don't think that it's really a bandwidth problem. I think the bandwidth problem comes when you're starting to connect suppliers with manufacturers. But then, whole discussion comes up about security. So we were also talking about, integrating supply chains. I don't think this will happen if we don't solve the security issue. So I'm actually I have a very sober view on the use cases in the manufacturing environment, because most of these manufacturing environments are not as automated as we think.
So maybe I can share an overview of your view. I'll cover two areas why 5G is important, or maybe last, you want to go with.
Yeah, I just wanted to give also Charles
is there like a hand raising button or something, or an electric shock?
You got to raise your hand, Charles.
Interrupt.
Charles, I wanted to move the conversation over to you. Thanks, Willis, for
Let me just add one comment on it. I'll summarize the whole thing. We don't know how we're going to make money out of 5G. Someone had asked earlier about what's all the hype. The hype is that analyst firms are coming out. Like, I'm looking at one on my screen now from EBI that says 5G for connected cities is going to generate $17 trillion in economic growth by 2035. That's hype. No one knows what it is. We don't need, and Willis is absolutely right. We don't know what the solutions are yet. But that's the thing. We now have it. And you were right, Lars, when you mentioned that this is more of a solution push. This is an enabler for the industry. Now we need to build the ecosystem. And then Daniel's right, it's all about PPPs. You're saying there's a new one right now with Stanford University partnering with Incheon and Seoul. They get access to all the city data to try and come up with new business models and solutions and what they can do. And 5G will be a big component of that. So it's about wrapping it all together. We don't have the answers about where it's going to. Also, if there is going to be surgeries on 5G, I'm not going to be the test rat on that one.
But so talking about then, so is at the end of the day, 5G, is it a major innovation in your opinion, Charles, or is it just a better mousetrap?
It's a major innovation and a better mousetrap. How's that? Perfect consultant answer. No, like okay, the speeds are fantastic, but what gets really interesting is as it evolves, as the networks and people invest more in their networks to get the extreme low latency, ultra low latency, and it does enable things that are just not feasible and possible today. It will be very transformative. It's also not happening in the next 24 months. These are things that will happen longer term down the road. What also, I like about it more than anything is the massive IoT component, because you're going to start seeing things called iSIM soon. And iSIM means that when they build a chip that goes into any product in the world, they can stick a modem and a SIM inside of that and allow it to connect over NB-IoT on 5G. That means anything in your home can be automatically talking back to the person who manufactures that product. that's when you see billions and billions of connections. It's nothing we're going to see. It won't be a lot of consumer apps, but it's stuff that'll help industries transform the way that they develop products and take them to market and service them as well.
Yeah, but Charles, I mean, connecting a temperature sensor doesn't need the bandwidth, right? I mean,
That's what I'm saying. And it's what about 5G? There is the component. It's very high speed. It also supports very low power devices as well on the same network. And what's different about it is right now, I think you can only put, and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, I think every base station can handle 64,000 connections. With the new release at the 3G spec, you can do 1 million per base station. Right now, if we connected all these things, the base stations can't handle it. They will be able to going forward. And that's one of the things that we're not talking about that much that's really going to be transformative.
And I think, Andreas, just to add to that, right? I think I mentioned it briefly. I think what's important goes back to the content being user generated and the uplink capacity for 5G being much. I'm sorry, we don't want to get too technical, but whatever you upload through 5G, as you said, temperature sensors doesn't require anything, but video analytics would in time. And as you go through these public safety now getting more and more prominent of how you measure people, facial recognition, and so on. And we can talk about security aspects of that in a bit, but I think that'll create a lot of uplink, and 5G, number of users, the amount of uplink you need will have to be there. And I agree, it's going to take a couple of years for us to get there. But I think, again, I would emphasize, I think we are a bit better in a position to understand where those applicable use cases should be, and at least we can give it a shot, to add to what Charles just said.
Let's look at one topic that I know Charles especially is extremely passionate about: smart cities. Do we need a new infrastructure move like 5G helping us to really get to something smart city? Is it particularly for the economic part or the sustainability, security, privacy implications? Do we need that? And is that the kind of horse we needed to jump the fence, or?
Smart cities are not doing well, and it has nothing to do with technology. We have all the technology to create solutions that will deliver value back to the cities, to the businesses that operate them, and to the citizens that live there, but we don't do it. It's a problem that we're not very good at collaborating, whether that's internally or across the technology ecosystem. It's always a people issue. It's not a technology issue on that. So it will help, it'll enable new solutions, but we need to mature as an industry about how we take these solutions to market. And that doesn't mean, and just because I can make a solution that works, doesn't mean I have the right business, operational, financial, and support models to take it to market. So cities have tons of problems, and it's nothing to do with the technology.
Okay.
And to add to that, I think if you just take the technology aspect and you look at how 5G, so 5G is in principle less complex to deploy because the deployment structure, the aesthetics are smaller and smaller. But you can't do that till the cities start working together and collaborate to see what the deployment structures are going to look like as a basis of smart cities. And the other thing is, absolutely, the technology has been there. The business models for smart cities haven't been there. Where the money comes from is a big problem. Where does it sit and how do we evaluate it? I think one of the things that is good about smart cities and 5G is going to be, I think as we move forward, they're critical industries which need a better form of bandwidth, security, and quality of service versus what a non-critical industry could do. So for example, if you look at a person consuming data on a normal network versus a healthcare worker, in 5G, this network slicing feature will allow us to manage these as completely different streams of information, prioritizing it, giving the more security versus where you could deprioritize and change the quality of service that is there. I think that's going to be an interesting way cities could use it. But again, I think those things have been there. Some of the aspects of technology have been there for years now. And I think it's a collaboration that needs to happen. Otherwise, we were not going to get any further on that.
Do you see that happening in Singapore? I mean, Singapore is always described as a role model, right, in terms of smart city developments, and without naming details, but you know, is this ecosystem working, or are we just at the beginning?
For the smart cities ecosystem,
yeah,
just at the beginning. Singapore doesn't do enough testing and experimenting quickly. So what happens if you see a lot of the government proof of concepts that go on 2 to 3 years, call for innovative solutions, take 2 to 3 years to implement. If I'm a startup, I need a bridge loan just to get through a proof of concept. So they got to find ways to innovate faster, create test beds, and accept that some things will fail. Singapore doesn't like to have that failure component, so we need more test beds. So just to give Willis a good little plug here, I know M1 and SG Innovator are creating a test lab on 5G. I'm guessing, Daniel, you guys will be getting involved in that baby. But I mean, we need more of these test labs. I know Capital Land has one right now as well. We need more places to test these solutions out for our cities. And we need a different approach because, like I said, you can't, why should it take you 3 years to do a proof of concept? We should be able to evaluate these things, identify the success metrics, and it becomes an if-then statement. If I meet these metrics, then I deploy. Otherwise, we're experimenting with toys and we have no plans to deploy. Why even experiment?
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Maybe one question before we move over to the next segment. Like who's leading the pack? We know that South Korea is seen as leading the pack when it comes to deploying 5G. Did they jump the gun, or is it early deployer gets the worm? You want to take that one?
I can just kick this off. So I think, again, coming from a vendor, I think obviously nobody jumps the gun. Everybody needs to deploy 5G as quickly as possible, and Nokia is here to help. But to be fair, I think Korea currently has 10 to 12% of their subscribers on 5G. And they're also seeing an incremental change in the users, which I already mentioned, so not to repeat what I said. People are streaming more. This is a market that was already consuming more per day data than any other markets. And now by introducing 5G, they have seen a revenue growth. So I go back to the fact that I think they're seeing a successful outcome of what they've deployed. But to add to my colleagues here, I think that's just not enough. It'll have to move towards enterprise. It'll have to move towards the use cases with the governments and enterprise. It'll have to become large-scale deployment of areas and coverage where we need to get to, and we need to make sure that happens faster. Otherwise, the revenue growth just wouldn't sustain. So I think they've done well. I think they're seeing the revenue growth, and I can tell you that there is facts released by operators on how they're performing. And I think if you see growth, that's number one from a subscriber standpoint. Number two, it's revenue growth, and they're seeing it. So it's a good outcome for them, at least early outcome, but a lot more to do. Willis?
Willis, then directly molding the question for you, do you see the biggest revenue opportunity from 5G from the consumer or the enterprise business segment? Very simple question.
I think it's 50-50. Let me explain why. I think today, in the Korea situation, on the consumer side, I think the new use case, you will see a lot of new use case that will be charging you for the solutions, the applications, and the applications will probably be needing 5G. They could be paying a telco a fees to actually enable some of these new solutions. Because 5G, it's not just about faster speed, you see. To get the extra gaming aspect, let's say cloud gaming, to be a little bit faster, to make the game a little bit better, then you may need 5G for the experience to be totally different. To enable AR, VR, you do not need to enable AR, VR for entire population. But for a certain location like a gaming arena, you may need that. So I think the model is changing. The consumer will be paying for it. The B2B will be paying for it. So both will be paying for it. And I see growth in both consumers who are already experiencing the 5G network rollout, and the enterprises, which will be a little bit more slow because they need to fine-tune the type of solutions they really want before they roll out the 5G.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, and we're getting already some fantastic questions in from the audience, reminder to everybody tuned in, please look at the Q&A section, post your questions there, upvote questions. We already have more questions, I think, that I'm afraid we can answer. 13 questions waiting for us. Let's move to what we call rapid fire. I'll just throw a question that only has a yes, no, agree, disagree, black, white answer to the three of you. Let's start with, in the end, who will pay for 5G? Who will mainly pay for 5G infrastructure? Government, providers, or users? Charles?
I think Willis and I would agree that Daniel and Nokia should pay for it all, but that's not going to happen. In reality, the government isn't going to pay for it unless you want to create a government backbone. So most likely it's going to be the providers, which means we as users end up paying for it because we give them money.
Well, it's most likely that's you have to, fork it out first, but you need the money back. So that's how the game goes. Right?
That's right.
And Daniel, you agree you don't want to sponsor it for all of us for now?
No, I don't. I think the only thing I would add is that there are countries in the world that are getting very, very geopolitical about it. So obviously there will be some variance.
Let's discuss. Which ones do you think that would be?
I'll stay quiet right now. We're too close.
Some of the countries where I think you know the countries in the world where the government is playing an active part, and then if the government is doing a lot of seeding of a new application and solution, that could be the indirect way of funding the payments rather than a direct, injection.
Yeah, and there's a lot of incubation. I know it's a yes/no answer, but there's a lot of incubation and accelerators being set up by governments to push this. But my answer is with Charles and Willis.
Next question, 5G. So what we heard is roughly, it's a nice to have for consumers so far. For manufacturers in the next 12 months, is it a must have? Yes or no? Willis, manufacturers.
For manufacturers who are forward looking, yes.
Okay. Daniel.
It depends on the industry, but yes.
Of course. Charles, hopefully give us a different answer, please.
Only precision manufacturing, only Japan and Korea.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think let's move over to the Q&A. Andreas, you want to pick the first one from the Q&A section?
Yes, let's start. So we have one: in a highly urbanized landscapes such as Hong Kong or Singapore or Tokyo with fiber rolled out extensively, what's the value of 5G, since most people are happy with Wi-Fi at home? So that, I like that question.
Willis, defend yourself.
I think I'm just going to go back to the example. Most of us forgot about 3G, or ADSL. Remember ADSL? Your dial-up modem, the ADSL and 3G. At that point of time, people are asking, why do you need 4G? Why do you need a fiber broadband to your house? Why do you need Wi-Fi 6 for that matter? So 5G is the same. I think today we are happy with what we have because this is what the applications are. That's what the application needs today. But when the next wave of application come out, they push the boundary of technology to enlarge, to empower the businesses, to improve your lives, to make your life more fun. And then there's the demand for the 5G will definitely be there. So again, I mentioned earlier, we don't know what the things that will be coming up, but we are seeing early signs of new solutions being pushed out from both the B2B and the B2C segments. I've seen early days of cloud gaming. It's very exciting because when the telco industry, I get to see some of these exciting things happening. Remote surgery is a bit later because there's a lot of regulations involved, isn't it? But even autonomous vehicles. But in between autonomous vehicles, remote surgery, and cloud gaming, the wave of solutions are being built now by the new entrepreneurs who are using 5G as an enabler for them to build the next Netflix, the next Facebook of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Over to the next question from Vinod Narang. Hello, the smart home idea has been around since some time, but really hasn't taken much traction yet. Would 5G change that, the smart home concept?
No. Smart home solutions have been overhyped, and the reason they actually started to take off in the US is because people have central air and central heating. It'll take a generational thing. When I can connect all my however many air conditioners I have and control them remotely, that's when I'll start adopting the solutions. And trust me, I've tested out many of them, and I'm looking at 3 of them sitting on the floor right now that have been there for a couple months. I should get rid of a variety of different toys. So I don't see it changing yet because we don't have the solutions. It's something you need faster speeds for. You need a solution that actually delivers value to my life.
Good. Next question from Liting Lim. How is 5G really different from our current 4G network? How does it affect future technology? Without going into specs, but maybe just the high points, Daniel, that sounds like a question for you.
Yeah, look, I think 5G is different in many ways. So we talked about usage bandwidth. We talked about some of the massive IoT that's going to come through, and latency. Just to explain latency, maybe it is how quickly you're able to receive a response from whoever you're communicating to. I think that altogether is very different in 5G than it is in 4G. The last thing I would just add there to quickly wrap up is I think there is something called edge computing, which is very important for how devices are going to connect from a massive IoT standpoint, wearables, as Charles explained at the beginning, and also lastly, connected cars. We all know connected cars are real, they're happening, and they're selling more and more thanks to a particular company now. So I think 5G is going to be key for that latency part and the mobile edge computing that's going to allow us to communicate faster, quicker turnaround time, ensuring safety and security of the data that's transmitted across the network, across the network. Yeah.
Follow-up question from Liting, and maybe that's something for Willis. When will 5G be fully implemented in Singapore?
So I think in 5G, there are two standards now. There's an NSA standard, which you are already seeing now in the market today. You can sign with any of the telcos today. You can see that service now. That promises you better speed, better latency. But to enable true 5G, it will be 2025, and then where all the use case will be ready. Well, we don't want to be too ahead of time because I think, as you said, as I mentioned earlier, 5G is not it's an ecosystem play. You need the chipsets to be ready, the phones to be ready, the devices to be ready, the machines to be ready in the factories. So I think there's a pace build up to probably a finale in 2022. 24, 25, but you'll see a phase rollout of 5G in Singapore, a very rapid one, I would say.
There is one good question, Lars.
Yes.
What kind of infrastructure is required to support the 5G network? Maybe
Daniel.
Look, I think it's in terms of the technology, I think it's kind of an evolution, right? So it's not something that we need to start from scratch. In terms of the impact, it's supposed to be more transformational. So I think from a technology standpoint, I think the infrastructure is getting, and there might be disagreements here, it's getting simpler to deploy because we're getting into small cells. So if you look at how we deploy the technology today, we build a tower, we throw concrete, we build a huge tower, we put antennas. There's a lot of safety risks. There's a lot of effort that needs to go in to build a macro site. 5G changes all of that. What needs to happen is that we can put more and more radio in smaller forms in different parts. So what's changing, again, is the business model, the way that needs to be deployed, the permissions that you need from the regulation, the regulatory authorities need to change the way they think, and we can deploy 5G faster. But in terms of physical deployment, it is easier to deploy, and it's an evolution of the existing networks that are already there. So you don't need to go deploy a full-on core, etc. There are capacity issues that need to be addressed. Obviously, as you see the demand come up, an important part of 5G is the backhaul. So backhaul meaning the links that carry the traffic over, they need to be upgraded maybe, or they need to be looked at from the context of 5G. But again, it's an evolution, doesn't need to be changed. All equipment that Nokia sells today is 5G ready. Even if you're deploying a network today, you will be able to evolve through that to 5G.
I think I want to add on to what Daniel has mentioned earlier. So one of the key differentiation of 5G and a 4G network is this. In the early days with the 4G network, you can deploy a Wi-Fi network to complement it. And then Nokia got a fantastic technology known as 4.5G small cell. M1 is a big user of this technology. We deploy this for a lot of private locations, the shipyards, in the MRT lines, etc., to make 4G better and to enable Wi-Fi. Now, 5G has a big difference here. What Daniel mentioned earlier was macro cells, no different from the 4G technology. What 5G enables us to do is this. Remember, 5G is very intense. You are connecting millions of devices. You want high speed. And that can only be achieved if we go to a particular location, let's say a shipyard, let's say Keppel shipyard, and we're going to deploy 5G small cells across the entire place very densely. Only then can you realize the full potential of 5G. And that's what's well known in the industry as a private network. I'm sure Daniel got a big literature on that. So for 5G, we noticed that I think at least for M1, we'll be building a lot of private network for all our customers going forward, depending on their needs. It could be one for the shipyard, one for the ports, one for a factory, etc. So that's the key difference. In the past, it was always a shared network, and it was in a way there's no slicing. So 5G enabled another key feature called slicing. The big network now can be shared, as if it's privately owned by you. You know, you can be your own little circles running a network now in a particular aspect of it. Everyone can be a telco in that sense. Every enterprise can be a telco now. and they can use it to be fully.
There will be more base stations, right? So are there going to be health concerns, increased health concerns?
No, nothing more than nothing to be worried more than the Wi-Fi. I cannot say that look, I'm not a doctor, but as far as I'm concerned, I've been working in the industry for 20 years and I'm still alive. So it doesn't seem to hurt me.
That's a good.
I got 4 half-G base station in my room. I got Wi-Fi 6 base station in my room. I got 4 or 5 base station in my room, and I'm still alive. So maybe maybe I'm thinking something different.
Willis is still alive, but what you can't see is he actually has 6 legs now from all the radiation.
No, but I mean there are health concerns. I mean back in with European countries where you have a lot of groups that are actually complaining, and I mean there are scientific studies about that. So, but this is not in the focus of what you guys are thinking about.
Really, I think that when we roll out 3G, 4G, there was always concern. Let me share a joke with you, and there's a big audience here. Yeah. There was a particular. I was asked to lay out a 5G network, a 4G network in a particular location. So I told the tenant, look, I'll be turning it on today. And then they came to me, oh, I got a big headache today. It's terrible. I got a headache there. Is your 5G affecting me? I said, no, I haven't turned it on. I was just telling you today, but actually I'm turning it on tomorrow. So you can see that actually the effect of most people, when they see the 5G base station there, something big, something different, they get worried, that there'll be health effect, radiation effect. Actually, in reality, it's always the case. If you do any study in the world, very little impact. And technology is there for 20 years. From GSM technology has been 20 years. Unless you're sleeping next to the base station for every night. I've not tried that myself, but maybe that's when you're infected by the technology. Generally speaking, if you're only the radiation, the amount of frequency that's being used to reach your phone is not that big. Even with 5G, it's not. I know the speed is faster, latency is better. Doesn't mean that you get more power to push the capacity to your phone. So I think in terms of health, I think. Yeah, it's open statement. Yeah, I think you got to look at it from that point of view.
But I think we need to do a better job as an industry to educate people, because if 5G is going to transform the way we live, we need people to understand the benefits of it versus if there are any risks. I understand from what I've read, there are none, but we need to do a better job in the industry of educating people.
That when we lay out base station, people are very worried that this place next to their home, next to their offices. No, we need to educate them that look.
Okay. There are a lot of questions coming in. Sorry, we want to use the time to really answer all these questions. So James Perry is asking, I'm aware there is a white paper discussion on 6G, and South Korea and China are already experimenting that. Where are we moving in that direction?
This has to be Daniel.
Look, no, I'll keep it very short. I think if you go back, I've been in the telco industry for 20 years as well. We started talking 5G when 4G came out. This is a cyclical industry. It takes a long time. You've got to talk about use cases. You've got to talk to regulators and people who set the standards early on, so we can evolve those standards with time. It's going to take a long time. We're at the start of the 5G journey. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But of course, the people who need to work on the standards need to start early to define those. And yes, there are discussions on what standards they should be, but we're not looking at that anywhere in the next 10 years. 5G is here to stay. We're going to transform these use cases and really help them come to life before we get on to from a user perspective. But yes, regulators need to get involved, and we need to invest in R&D. Yeah.
2 questions that are from the audience, and we touched on it earlier. They are related but different. Security and privacy. 5G, more devices connected. So if somebody gets, if it's possible to hacks in it, bigger exposure. That's more the security part. Privacy part is if I have more connected devices all around me, how much am I still a person that is not 24/7 monitored? My washing machine knows if it's used or not, so somebody knows if I'm on holiday or not. My smart home might know if the aircon goes on or not. Somebody might know that. So privacy and security, big topics within short answers, unfortunately. But who want to take the security question first? Is 5G basically same level secure as 4G or 3G, or it's basically security is not an issue, or it's a massive one?
Security is an issue, but it doesn't mean that someone's going to go and hack the 5G network. It's the endpoint. So it's your phone. It's all the apps you put on your phone. The fact that you use the exact same password for all the different things. That's your security risk.
Okay. What about the privacy? And it's not necessarily 5G itself, but the application.
Use Facebook, you have no privacy already.
That's an easy answer, but I mean,
Incorrect.
So if, I don't know, my
I'll
washing.
answer the question for you this way. So IMDA's released an AI governance framework, and this will get around things about the ethical use of things like facial recognition or vehicle recognition. That they just launched a bunch of use cases and best practice. I think Darwin in Australia just got awarded best practice for deploying this AI governance framework. These need to be done in partnerships with data protection groups or data privacy groups, and that's what they did. So there's actually 3 involved. It was IMDA, the data protection group, and then somebody else. But that's will eventually help us address this. Governments have been lax about coming forward and saying this is what we can and can't do. Because of COVID, you will see a raft of these things coming out of every country, and Singapore is just led the way.
Okay, cool. That I think brings us to just one last question from Kyok Kang Pang. He said, of the 3 properties of 5G, as in your intro slides, Charles, it appears latency is the true differentiating factor, or one of the main one, but why is the last one to arrive?
I'll let Daniel add in. So the reason it's the last one is it's the most expensive one, because to have more base stations, it's more expensive. If we deploy it today, we don't have anything to do with it yet. So it needs to be maturing at the same level as you're going to have autonomous vehicles. And hopefully they will intersect around the same time and create a nice market out.
Fantastic, thank you. So maybe then just a closing statements before we have the sound bites from everybody. Maybe in a 1-sentence answer by everybody. The question that's on top of our Q&A right now, summing it up, why does 5G matter in 1 sentence? Why does 5G really matter, hype or not, right? So why does 5G really matter? 1-sentence answer, Daniel.
I think it's going to transform the way we live beyond just connectivity, and transform the way we use the services available to us, may it be in healthcare or any other enterprise.
Okay, Willis, why does 5G truly matter?
For the consumer, it will bring you new experience you have never seen before. And for the enterprises, it will transform the way we work.
Charles?
Because I work with a lot of the mobile operators around the region, and they don't know how to monetize it. So this becomes my business pipeline, so I can go help them identify the solutions. I'm very selfish.
Andreas,
I'm getting the free space from Charles today, for attending this.
Andreas, maybe, are you convinced is 5G a hype, or are we already seeing the real thing?
5G is real. The hype is what the analysts are coming out with their crazy BS forecasts. Every time they come out, I want to pull my hair out.
Andreas, are you convinced?
No, I'm not convinced. On the consumer side, yes, but I think it's massively driven by video and high bandwidth applications. This I completely understand, but on the B2B industrial side, I am not convinced.
Okay, cool. So some of the sound bites we had today, Daniel just said, 5G is going to be transforming the way we live beyond connectivity. Charles actually pointed out that Singapore doesn't do enough experiments or test beds for smart cities and could do more. Willis shared with us that COVID is the transformer, but 5G is the enabler. So back to, we are here, digital transformation leaders. And we heard that despite the poll results today, gaming is going to be one of the key drivers for 5G. That's what Daniel shared. And last but not least, one soundbite was from Charles. If there's going to be 5G use on surgery, I'm not going to allow myself to be the guinea pig. So, okay, so that brings it to an end. Thank you very much, Willis, Charles, Daniel, of course, my co-host, Andreas. Big thank you to our sponsors and supporters, especially SwissJam and Deloitte, who made the DX Leaders Series possible. We are back again next week with our focus on the financial industry. It's run the bank versus change the bank. Lessons learned from transformation projects. We have UBS, we have Accenture there. So we're really looking a little bit, we're opening the hood of the financial industry and how that one is transforming. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Next week, we are back at our normal slot. Actually, in 2 weeks, we're back in our normal slot at 5 p.m. That's November 3rd, not next week, November 3rd. We're back at our normal slot, Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You could have been anywhere else, but you joined us to discover 5G is the hype real. I hope you got some good answers, insights, learning, and takeaway. Thank you, everybody. See you again on 3rd of November. Bye-bye.
Thank you.